So yeah, we'll just start, with last week, I guess. Vegas. I thought a productive trip. Thought learned a lot. Which we knew we would about our group. Played a team in Oregon that hadn't lost a game yet. Struggled to win some of their games at home. So we felt like we had a team that could beat them, and we're able to go out there and win that first one, which was huge. To beat a high major opponent, a team picked to finish fifth in the league. Two all conference players in their team. I don't know if Oregon yet knows how good or how bad they are. And obviously, Biddle getting hurt in the second game obviously changes their trajectory a little bit. But still, obviously, happy to get that win with the first game in Vegas. Knew going into Michigan that we were going to have our hands full. They had just beaten a really good San Diego State team by 40. So going into that game, we knew that we had to have a lot of special to, one, compete, but two, win the game. And we didn't have that. Didn't play well. We missed, I think, 15 free throws. They made 16 threes. Their bench made 9 threes in that game. I think they had made a combined 9 threes in the previous 5 games. So that just kind of showed you how well they played, and we played poorly. And obviously, a really disappointing effort on our end to not be able to compete with one of the best teams in the country for 40 minutes. I thought in the second half we kind of simplified things offensively and allowed us to, just keep that half, square as we could, because you have to get ready for that next game. And in 3 game formats like that, whether you have a big win or a big loss, like, you have to wash it and get on to the next one really quickly. And we didn't find out who our opponent was until like 9:30 that night, and we stayed up pretty much all night working on the scout and prep the guys. And before you knew it, we were on the bus heading to that third game. So. First 10 minutes of St. John's, I thought we looked really good. Defensively, I think we had turned them over like 8 times in the first 10 minutes, which was productive and positive. I thought, late in the first half, we kind of got away from what had led us to have some success in the first 10 minutes. Got down 9, and at halftime, we, got together and, had some discussions that needed to be had, which I thought were really productive. And, by coaches and players. And, I thought our guys responded really well to it in the second half. To outscore that team 55-33 in the second half, that shows something after a really disappointing loss the night before, and then having a 7-point lead turn into a 9-point deficit at halftime. Was great to see Tahad look like Tahad again. I keep getting asked about if I'm worried about him, and I wasn't worried about him, and he led the players there in scoring. And obviously in the first game, the Oregon game, like, when we weren't great offensively, he kept us in it. And obviously in the second half of St. John's, he ultimately won us the game with just a lot of the shots that he was making. So great response in the second half, but just like the Michigan game, you can't get too low, because you got to respond and get ready for the next one. We can't get too high after beating a good St. John's team, because you got an NC State team coming in here tomorrow who is just going to be pissed off because they went 1-2 in Maui. They were probably the best team out there, and they didn't play the way that they were supposed to. And I know that Coach Wade is going to have those guys fired up. I told our guys, like, they're going to be playing with a different level of effort and energy that they've played with all year. They're going to have their backs against the wall. Their hair is going to be on fire, and they're going to come in here, looking at this one as a must-win game. So our guys got to be ready, because this will be our third top 10 offensive efficiency team in the country, and we're actually playing 4 straight when you count Arizona on the weekend. So 4 of the top 10 offenses in the country, will have played in back-to-back-to-back-to-back games. So, this team is obviously tremendously talented offensively. They really shoot the ball really, really well. 36% of their points come off of threes, and they shoot it at 42%, which is 7th in the country nationally. So really shoot it well. They're great in transition. They create offense from their defense. Do a good job of rebounding the offensive glass, and turning them into second chance points. All 5 guys in their starting lineup are averaging double digits, and I want to say 4 of those, actually, wow, all 5 guys are shooting over 40% from three, so that's fun. And then, one of their best shooters coming off the bench is Matt Abel. So they got a lot of guys that can really spread it, can really shoot it. Preseason ACC Player of the Year, Darion Williams, who's going to be obviously, a tough matchup. But I know our guys are excited. ACC SEC Challenge. Obviously, our league is represented last year. But with a late game, we need all of our fans, to be there as they've been. Folks that have season tickets that can't make it, like, please transfer your tickets, to a friend or anyone, or to me, and I'll find a way to get them out to somebody. But we got to get those things filled for this game, because it's obviously this is our second to last home game before conference play. So, we need a full house tomorrow night, and I know our students are obviously going to be fired up and ready to go. But should be a fun environment against a really good team.
What are the lessons that you guys learned on defense from going through all that in Vegas, and what needs to kind of be applied to, like you said, the Cincinnati State team's as good as it gets on offense this year?
Yeah, I think this Michigan game, like, we just got way too spread out, and I'm not particularly sure why. I got to do a better job of making that adjustment in the game. But like in our ball screen coverages, we were just so extended, and it really made our backside help. It made their jobs way harder. To get over and tag and then get back to their man, and they just spread us out and made us pay. Thought in the St. John's game we did a better job of not getting us spread out and allowing our help side to be in the right positions. I thought, Tahad Pettiford specifically was constantly in the right spot off the ball, just like, and you saw how aggressive he was in those first 10 minutes, like, just being more active on the ball, off the ball, just trying to make plays. That's what we need him to do. That's what we need KO and Elijah to do. Just more activity, just trying to be disruptive, but closer to the basket, because when we get spread out, that's when teams can take advantage of us, and that's what Michigan did. So, we made an adjustment in going into the St. John's game, and I thought it was effective. I think if you look at their offensive efficiency numbers, that was their worst production rating of the year. So that was positive. And I told our guys, I was like, going into the game, I think we were 80th or something going into the St. John's game in defensive efficiency. I think we jumped 10 spots. I was like, for us to be a nationally relevant, competitive team, we got to be in the top 50 defensively. Our offense is in the top 10 right now, which is awesome. Coach Burgermaster's doing a phenomenal job. But we got to do a better job defensively of being disruptive. And, we have an unbelievable opportunity this week to play 2 high-powered offenses to, sit down and guard and see what we're capable of.
How's Filip doing? Do you think he's going to go tomorrow?
Yeah, Filip practiced yesterday, so he should be good to go. Had his wrist taped up. The team's battling some illness right now, so had a couple guys, I think almost half of our rotation was out yesterday. Just guys were sick. So it happens every year, though. You look around college basketball, like, everyone is going to go through it at some point. It's just a matter of when you go through it. So we're going through it this week. I know Clark's working around the clock, and Dr. Goodlett and those guys, to make sure our guys are healthy and ready to go. So, but now Filip's good, and we'll be good to go tomorrow.
Yeah, can we talk a little bit more about the halftime in the St. John's game? Sound like, I think you said on radio, KO was somebody that kind of spoke up. Can you talk a little bit about what he said or what was said?
I'm never going to tell you guys what was said at halftime. That's for the privacy of our locker room. And but what was said is what needed to be said, and I thought he did a great job of delivering it. But I thought the guys that were received it really well. So for me as a coach, that's important, because some people can take offense to certain things, can get sensitive in their feelings, and there wasn't any of that. And I think the combination of KO and some of the other guys speaking up, and the other combination of guys receiving it, gave our guys, I thought, the confidence and the courage to go out there. And that's part of college, but that's part of college athletics. Everybody's got their, they got their warts, and they got stuff that goes on throughout the season. And it's about, how we collectively work through those things. And I thought our guys did a great job of working through that in the second half, and ultimately allowed us to outscore a really good team by 22 points.
See, what have you seen from Murph as he continued to kind of come back, and how valuable has he been as you've seen it kind of get back to being close to full speed?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great if he could stay out of foul trouble, because when he's out there, He's so freaking productive, man. He does so many things offensively that you just can't teach, right? Just got great feel. He's got great touch. He's made two of the biggest threes of the year. I think the St. John's one and then the Bethune-Cookman one were two just enormous shots, and he just plays with a lot of confidence. So the combination of him staying healthy and then him staying out of foul trouble are really important. So it helps a ton to have him out there. He's got to do a better job defensively, I think. He had a couple silly fouls, just like was out of position and just slapped down, and like he can't take himself out of the game in those moments because we rely on him, especially in a game where Filip was out. Like I don't think that's getting talked about enough. Like Filip, who probably played better than anyone in the Michigan game, was going to play a lot more in the St. John's game, doesn't play, and Murph has 3 fouls with I don't know how many minutes were left in the first half, but probably like 10 minutes in the first, so we then had to play the remainder of that game with, really like 6 or 7 guys because Abdul was sick, and, so our front court was pretty depleted at that point. So he's got to do a good job of guarding without fouling, but also when he does have great ball pressure defensively, he's got great active hands, he's got great feel, and he can make plays up there. So, but him being out there is obviously has a huge impact on us. He's always positive in the plus minus. So, just excited for him to continue to grow and get better. And he's got another great opportunity tomorrow night against a couple really good bigs.
Like you just said, Phillips had a few nice games in a row, had a good turn. But where do you feel like he's had to grow the most this season, just with all the change that he's gone through coming here?
Yeah, I just think it's just him being adjusting to the speed and the quickness and the athleticism of the game. And this is going to sound contradictory, but he's really fast, he's really quick, but he needs to slow down, if that makes sense. So when he catches it, if he immediately puts it down on the floor, he's going too fast. When he would catch it and take a beat and read the defense and then go, no one can really stop him. And he's done a much better job of that over the last 5 games. I think he's shooting, where does it say it? Maybe I thought this was on there and it wasn't. Oh, here we go. 16 for 21 from the field, 76%. It's really good. So he's slowed down. But then once he puts it down, he's obviously playing fast. He's really good. He's got a quick twitch jump, so he can get offensive rebounds. So I just think the game slowed down for him a little bit, and I think that's been the most important thing. And we just kind of told him, when you're out there, be aggressive. I think he's such a team player, he's such a winner, that all he was focused on was trying to make the right play and just trying to get his teammates involved. And I was like, you got to do what you've been doing your entire career and what's made you successful. Go score the basketball, right? Go get offensive rebounds, impact the game with your speed and your quickness defensively. So it just, he's a freshman still, even though he's 20 years old, he's still a freshman, right? For freshmen and transfers, it sometimes takes some time and some adjusting to obviously start playing your best basketball. And I'm obviously glad that he's started to pick it up because we're going to need his production off the bench.
Sure.
Coach, you also got your first successful challenge last week in Vegas. Kind of trusting Taha's judgment on the court. Is that how you're going to assess, challenges moving forward?
Say it again.
Basically, when you trust your players, when it comes to making home court challenges, seeing how you trusted Taha last week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how our program's always operated, is trusting our players to go out there and make our decisions work. And Tahad is a guy that you have to just kind of let play through mistakes and play with freedom. And same thing with a lot of our guys. So we're not going to micromanage those guys offensively. I've always said, they're going to take shots where you're going to be like, what was that? But as long as they give great effort and energy on the defensive end, you got to allow those guys to kind of play through slumps, because that's what Tahad needed. Tahad obviously was shooting 20-something% going into Vegas. That wasn't going to change anything that we were doing offensively, because we know what he's capable of, and we just know that it was just one of those things that he got to work through. And sure enough, he did, and he had a great tournament. So yeah, always, especially my point guard, always going to trust our guys to go out there and deliver when they need to.
Going back to KO, he's had to do some of the point guard stuff, ball handling. His assist turnover ratio is really good. How much of an added kind of boost to the backcourt does it give you when your 2 guards doing a lot of that combo stuff, especially in clutch situations?
Yeah. Was it the Oregon game he had to play some point? Yeah. So, he stepped up nicely in that game. But, he'll even tell you, in the Oregon and Michigan games, he did not play well. played a lot better in the St. John's game. And for us to I told him this before the game, I was like, for us to beat the best teams on our schedule, you have to be really good. And I thought he was really good in the St. John's game. So we need that more consistently. And he's all about winning. Like that's his whole MO. Like everywhere he's been through, from high school through college, like he's been on winning teams and winning programs, and he has an edge and a toughness to him that is really important. So for us, just continuing to put him in positions to be successful, continuing to trust him. He's got to continue to just make plays defensively, because he's probably our best one-on-one defender, and that's going to be challenged tomorrow because they have guards that are really good getting downhill and getting to the rim. Copeland is one of the he's 6'6", and he's slippery like a 5'8" point guard. And Trey Holloman from Michigan State last year is a guy that's shooting at a really high level. So he's got to do a great job of scoring those guys up. Paul McNeil is one of the best shooters in college basketball. So just got to continue to trust him offensively, but then we really got to lean on him defensively, because he's one of the guys. Like we recruited him from Texas Tech because he was one of their best defenders, and he's got to continue to show that that's where his value can really be for us, because he does so many other little things, like you said, that impact winning.